Welcome. This is Creo 11.0, Exercise 1. In this exercise, we take a look at the foundations of Creo, and we're going to, version 11 here that I have up, and I'm going to just step you through how to use it, how to change some settings and things like that. So let's begin. First of all, when you start up Creo, this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and hit the little X here to get out of their browser. Now, first of all, when you want to start a new part, you go right up here to New, and you'll see this is the types of files that you could create. Parts, assemblies, and drawings are the ones that we're going to work on. And then there's solid, sheet metal, or bulk. We will work on sheet metal near the end of the semester for this, but not until then. Every time we use Creo from here on, we'll use solid. So make sure it's set to part, solid, and go ahead and type in E1. I'm going to type in E1B just because I already created an E1 earlier. I'm going to hit OK. Now, some of the settings that you want inside Creo, when it pops up, it might look like this. Since I'm in the United States, we're already set in inches, and I just want to show you where some of those settings are located. If you go to the File tab up at the upper left here, and you go to Prepare, you'll see Model Properties. Now, in the Model Properties right here, you could see I'm set to inch, pound, second. If you want, you could change it. This whole exercise will be done in inches. I do prefer millimeters, but everyone here in the US knows this, and that's where I'm at. So we're sticking with inches for this one. But if you're overseas and you want to change the inches, you can just click here and hit set. Or if you want to reverse that and change it to inch, kilogram, second, or something like that. Creo does some really great things with this. If you already have a part that's made, you could switch it out pretty much instantly between metric to inches, and everything updates. And you can have it either scale it or using those dimensions. So like 1 inch equals 1 millimeter, or you could actually have it do the math for you where it's an equal parameter. I'm going to go ahead and hit close there. Another thing you have here, once we have the part completed or a part up on the screen, you could hit change here, and you could put in the select from a library of materials that they have. So like if you want 6061 aluminum set, you could put that in there, and then there's properties that are in there, some of them that you could change or add to, and later on use for analysis. You could find how much the part weighs after it's done, things like that. It's pretty cool stuff. So you'll find that in here. There's some other things I'm not going to go through right now in there, but that's one area. And then here's truly what I call the heart, which is the options menu. And if you go to options up here, you'll see under System Appearance, if you'd like the interface to be light or dark, that's where it is. You could go ahead and do whatever you like, but I would recommend maybe for this one exercise, keeping it the way I have it, because in a second here, you could go in and you could change it to different colors, and there might be an instance where I say, okay, click on that orange dot. Yours might be green because you changed the color. So just be aware of that. It's not too hard to figure out, though, your way or navigate through it. Okay. Also, model display. Here you can set your quality if you have a very good graphics card, like a good gaming graphics card. Creo seems to really like NVIDIA's processors, especially CUDA cores. You could utilize those for its rendering package as well as its simulations. So just be aware. I have an AMD card in here, a professional AMD card, the Radeon Pro W6400, which is a great card, but it's unfortunately doesn't use those processing cores, so it's kind of a downer. But anyhow, you could set this up really high. If you have a tablet and it's a very slow, older tablet, maybe with a Windows 10 or something on it, you can set that lower. It will speed up the rotation of the parts and stuff. But right now, I'm just going to leave that at 10. Okay, go to Sketcher. And here you could adjust some of the sketching, the decimal places, for example. I'm going to put mine up to 3 decimal places. So like if we go 0.125, which is, an eighth of an inch, it's easy to understand. Okay, also another thing that's nice in the Sketcher is, let's see here. There's auto scale, that's nice. And let's see, anything else that I want to change? Oh, there we go. It's still in the Sketcher. Make the sketching plane parallel to the screen. Love this option. I definitely recommend it, especially with mine. Otherwise, you end up having to go normal to manually versus this does it automatically when you start Sketch. So it's really nice. Okay, one last thing. Keyboard shortcuts I love keyboard shortcuts. They make you look very professional if you use them. So I definitely recommend it just because it is fast. It's very efficient. So like here, let's say we want fit to screen. You can type in fit and oh, there's refit, okay? And then right here, you click on it, type in F, and then from now on, every time I say fit that to the screen, if it's zoomed out really far or zoomed in, you could hit F on your keyboard and you're zoomed right up to it. Okay, now go ahead and hit OK. Now here's the thing, it's going to want to save a configuration file with these settings in it. You could create a new one and modify it for different customers even, or you could keep the existing one. I'm just going to hit yes here, and right there is the configuration.pro. They call it Pro because this actually used to be known as Pro Engineer, so it's been Creo for, gosh, almost a decade now. Go ahead and hit OK. All right. Now, what we're looking at here, these are the planes, and as you hover over them, that's the front, this one's the top, and then there's the right. And they're listed over here in the browser or feature tree or tree, whatever you want to call it. Basically, this is our roadmap of everything that you do in the software. And these planes are actually the paper that you're going to start sketching on. Later on, once we have models, anything that's flat on a surface, you can sketch on. But until now, this is where we have to start. And they all converge on a centralized origin, the CSYS inside here. And that's going to be our anchor point. That's the zero marker in space. So 0x, 0y, 0z. And technically, you don't want to move it, or it gives you the ability to create additional ones if you need them, but we don't have to worry about that so much these days. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Our goal, and let me bring up the actual part here, is to create this model. Okay, and as you can see here, it has some fillets. You can see there's the radius of 0.1. There's this actually foundation block, which is a 5x3. I'm just double clicking on this, by the way, to get these. There's some chamfers, 0.125. So it makes a 45-degree angle. And then here we have a through hole, and we locate it 1 inch off of the top edge and that edge on back there. We're also going to shell it out and make it a thin-walled part. Now I'm going to turn this on so I can rotate it centered. Okay, and I also have perspective on. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so you can see here we have the shell as well. So we made a thin-walled part. So that's our goal for today. So let's start. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select the front plane. Now, what plane do you start with? Quite honestly, in this class, most of the time I just sketch on the front plane. Where it comes in handy is, let's say we have a remote and you're designing this. Someone says, okay, design this. Now, where do you want to start? Well, I want to draw this rectangle right here on, that's probably the front. So draw that on the front plane. But let's say someone said, oh, we want the top started. That's the top of this remote, or at least that's what I would perceive as it is. And then that way you would select the top plane and draw this profile. Okay, or there's the side. So you have those options. Quite honestly, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Once you're used to working in the spatial environment, you could manipulate it in any way you want. It's not always easiest, but the thing is that I tell students, don't worry about it too much right now. Okay, go ahead, and when you want to start sketching on a plane, that's what we're going to do here. You click on the plane, and you get this quick launch of a toolbar of different features. And so, for example, there's edit the definition. We're not going to do that. There's sketch, and there's extrude and revolve. So it gives you some foundational features. Extrude is to draw a profile and extrude it. Revolve is to draw a profile and then revolve it around a centralized axis. Okay, we're not going to do that till exercise 2. Exercise 1 today is just extrudes. So what's really cool about this is that they give you the flexibility. You could start with your sketch, draw the sketch and extrude it, or if you know you're going to extrude, you could just click on extrude and it starts the sketch and integrates it. So it doesn't show up as a separate entity unless you click on it. So we'll start off with what many people, if you've come from a different CAD system, are very familiar with, just starting a sketch. So we'll click on sketch. And since we started on the front plane, that's what we're sketching at. And notice it went parallel to the screen. Remember that little setting in the options menu? That's why it did that for us. Okay, let's now find, these are the sketch tools. You can see the sketch tab is open, and we have rectangles, circles, ellipses, all sorts of fun things, lines. Hit the little arrow to the right of rectangle. You'll see corner rectangle, slanted, center parallelogram, things like that. You have a nice collection of tools. Go ahead and select corner rectangle. Move the tip of your pointer to the center crosshairs. You'll see it will snap. That's your zero marker in space. So you want that to be locked in there. So you'll see little symbols to the right of your pointer. Those are relations or constraints. Coincident, horizontal or vertical, it's going to lock it in. So we are locking in at that point. And later on, we could delete those if we didn't want it there, but that would leave it floating versus it's our anchor point, and that's a good reference to keep. Click. Now move your pointer to the upper right. You'll see it will start drawing some geometry, rectangle in this case. Don't worry too much about the size. It's good for conceptualization initially, but go ahead and click. Now when I refer to click, I'm always referring to the left mouse button. That's the one we use the most inside Creo. The right mouse button and the middle wheel, I'll usually make sure I tell you, like, right mouse button, right mouse button. I'll try and say it twice so it triggers, like, oh, it's the mouse button we don't use very often, because you only use that maybe 10% of the time, and that brings up context-sensitive menu items. The middle wheel does some really neat things inside Creo, very different from most CAD systems. Very different, so pay attention and you'll learn some neat things. Okay, now here's where we get to use the middle wheel. Now, scrolling the middle wheel will zoom in and out, and you could test that out if you want. But if you click on it like it's a button, it also enters into the next field. So middle click like it's a button on that wheel. And look at that, dimensions appear. And so now you can pull these dimensions down by clicking on them and holding them with the mouse button and just move it over to the right, move it over to the left. And let's say those are way too big, or this is going to be 3 by 5. So to change them, it's super easy. Just double click. And now you could just type in 3 here. Here's a very bad habit. Those of you who are looking to do this in a job. When I went job hunting, I had already known how to do the software, and I had a fellow colleague who taught me all about fast keys and being fast and efficient. And so I became that way. But if I were to interview someone, I'm going to say, oh, go ahead and draw me a box inside Creo. If I see a student do this or someone do this who's applying for the job, they click on the end there and they back up and they type 3.00. You're going to get a manager who's probably going to roll their eyes. Like, really? You just wasted all that time. And I'll show you why. This still works. If you're in my class, I don't care if you do it this way. But I'm just trying to share with you things for interviews later on that will help you get a job. So don't take offense to it if you did that, because I did that before. So don't worry. We all make those goofy things, mistakes. Hit enter. I don't really want to call it a mistake because it's a different way of doing things. Now it automatically scaled the other one so it stays on the screen, which is really nice technology. Now this one we want to change too. Now here's what I could have done. Just double click. See how it's all highlighted. Type in, we know it needs to be 5.00. You just have to type in 5. You don't need the trailing zeros if it's just zeros. Hit enter. Of course, if it's like 5.125, you're going to have to type that in, but you could start typing it in immediately. You don't have to backspace on it. You don't have to delete it. Those are things that are going to make you look professional. Not just look professional, you're going to be professional when you retain these things and use this model of modeling. Okay, so now we're to size. Now the thing is, we could go and hit OK, and the sketch just appears over here in the feature tree on the left, or the browser, whatever you want to call it. What can we do with it now? Well, while it's selected, you could go up here to make sure that the modeling tab is on. It should be automatic. Click on extrude or the X key, and you'll see it will start to extrude. Now, here is where we want to see what it looks like in an isometric view. Now, you could go up here to saved orientations and go to standard orientation, which was, mine was set to isometric. You might have yours set to trimetric, so it might look a little different, but that was in the options menu. Just rewind to the very beginning. You can see how that's changed if you want. All right, and now we have a little ruler here, you see the dimension, we could type in a new value there, or we could actually grab this dot and drag it with the mouse button. You have to click, hold it down, and drag. And it gives you this ruler. It's very detailed, so sometimes it's not so easy to get to what you want it to get to. So I'm actually going to double click here, and I could change it. Otherwise, here's the other area. You could go up here and type in the value too. So I'm going to go ahead and type in, I want it to be 0.5. So I clicked up there. I could click down here too. But there's also this. Make sure you're not in surface. You're in solid. We cover surfaces in the advanced class. So that's well into exercise, I'm going to say 20 or something like that. So anyhow, make sure it's in solid. It should automatically be in solid. All right. And then there's the ability to flip the arrows if you want it forward or backwards. We want it front facing this way, or at least to the left. And once you have that, you could hit enter. You could hit enter again on your keyboard, and sometimes it will apply, or you just have to hit the green check. In this case, it didn't work, so I'm going to hit the green check. All right, now we have our first solid on the screen. Now, if you double click on it, you'll see it brings you back to where you could change these dimensions by double clicking on them and so on and so forth. You could even extrude it differently. That's really great. It's a great editing tool, double clicking on the surface of what you want to change. But also, let's see how we could rotate this. So hit escape a couple times and then click off the screen. Now to rotate this, this is really nice to have turned on, spin center. If you have it turned off, it could spin off the screen. Spin center keeps it centered on the actual volume of the part. So when you rotate like what we're about to do, it does this. Move the tip of your pointer right in the middle of the screen, kind of like this. Now, the wheel on your mouse, if you scroll forward and backward, you could see it will actually zoom in and out. Now, you could go into a little bit more detail if you focus on a certain point, like move your pointer up here in this corner and start scrolling the wheel back towards you, and it'll stay focused on that point. So you could focus on different points that way. It's really a fabulous way of quickly getting where you want to. Okay, and maybe practice this later on today. Just right now, I just wanted to show you those basics. You could always rewind to this. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I want to show you how to rotate. This is where it's pretty cool. Okay, you just get in the middle and depress the wheel. Hold it down and don't let go. Now move your mouse left, right, up, and down, and it will rotate as such. Okay, so that is dynamic rotation. You could even get it to do all sorts of fun things. Okay, so now to bring it back, though, to the original orientation. Remember up here, saved orientations, go to standard, and it will bring it back to that isometric. Okay, there's front, top, right, things like that too. Okay, so now that we have that, there's also these settings, display. You could click on shading with reflections, and it gives you a much more realistic appearance. Takes off the edges. I like this, but I actually like to see the edges most of all. So like shading with edges really works. Or sometimes people just want shading that takes away the shadows. There's no hidden like this. And then there's also hidden lines and wireframe, if that's what we used to use back in the 80s or in the 90s, was wireframe because it was faster than solid. Okay. Let's take a look a little bit further here. Let's go back to shading with edges. I would recommend that for right now. You could choose any one you like. Also over here, there's displayed datums, planes, all those fun things. We could turn them off. Click twice on select all. It turns them all on, then turns them all off. You don't really need those. If you see someone with a bunch of planes on their screen, I guarantee you, ask them, they probably used Creo for close to 20 plus years because we used to turn those on all the time and use them. It was a little bit easier easier to navigate when you had all those on years ago, but now it's not necessary. Okay, now let's go back here to standard orientation. There's zoom to fit or fit with the F key. There's zoom in, zoom out where you click and drag. There's refresh the screen. There's rendering options. You can see background, things like that. So you have a whole bunch of neat little tools. There is actually perspective view, which gives you the perspective. I don't really like working in it too often. It's great when you make the renderings, which I'm going to show you a little later on. Okay, let's continue on here. Go ahead and click on this surface, and you could go and add a sketch, or you could do the integrated extrude, which is actually, believe it or not, considered cleaner by old pro engineer users. People use this for years, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So go to extrude, because we know we want to extrude onto this surface. And notice it started us in a sketch, just like before. Go to rectangle, hover your pointer to the lower left corner of the block. When you get the little symbol like I have here, click and move your pointer to the right and let it snap to this edge. Now notice there's a midpoint snap. We don't want that, not yet, but remember that, because on your lab 2, that really helps you save some time. Okay, but we want it down here somewhere. So just go ahead and click on that edge. And now, does anyone remember which mouse button to complete this? It's the middle wheel. You click on it one time. Don't scroll it, just click and release. And it exits out of there. So now you could go to this dimension, click and drag it out. And let's double click on it and change it to 1.5. Now yours might have been different, by the way. Yours might have been 1.3, 1.2, or whatever. But this, oh, hold on a second. Mine did take 1.5. Okay. All right, so we're at 1.5. That gives it the height. And now we're ready to extrude. So we could hit OK. And now you could use your little rotation tool. Remember which button and how to navigate it. Hold the wheel down. Move your pointer to the left and you'll see, and left down a little bit and release the middle wheel. And there we can see it. Okay, now this one we want, well, we could drag that. It's supposed to be 0.5. Otherwise, just double click on here, type in 0.5. Does anyone remember where you could click and change that in another place? Up here. Okay, so either one is fine. And then hit enter. Oops, I have a comma. So that was an accident. So 0.5. Oops. Hold on a second. My keyboard just died? No. Okay, we're good. All right, so 0.5 changed it. Hit OK. Now we're going to go ahead and drill a hole in here. Now there is a hole tool that gives you all sorts of common holes and countersinks, counterbores. It's really a great tool. Let's locate it. We're not going to use that right now. We're going to do that in exercise 4. So we still have 3 more exercises to do before we hit that. That's a little bit more on the advanced side. I'm going to show you how to do the very basic hole. Click on this surface and let's go to extrude again. Now go to circle. Notice there's a couple different types of circles there. Just center and point circle is fine. And hover this upper left quadrant, click, and draw out a circle that looks kind of like mine. Take a minute and then click again. And now middle wheel click. And it brings up the dimensions. So this is a good dimension. Let's drag that out. That's the diameter. Double click on it. Notice it said it was weak. Hold on a second. I'll get with the next one. Go ahead and type in 0.75. All right. Now this dimension right here, if you drag that up, if you hover over it, you'll see it says weak. There's weak, there's strong, and there's locked dimensions. Weak dimensions are for conceptualization only. You need to really update by double clicking, changing the dimension, typing a new value, and hitting enter, or you could right click and set it to strong, or you could even lock it. Now, if you set it to strong, it could still be changed by you dragging the geometry around. Okay, be aware of that. But if you lock it, it won't be able to be moved. So I just recommend you don't have to lock dimensions as much as just set it towards strong. Weak dimensions typically indicate that you left out a dimension. You didn't look at the dimension, so it's kind of just a weird dimension that might not be right or what you want. So I'm going to double click here, type in 1, hit enter. Now this dimension, I don't really want that. I wanted it dimensioned off the top edge. So here is where we're going to learn how to dimension go to the dimension tool up here. Now, we want a dimension off of this edge, which, not that edge, I'm sorry, the top edge versus the bottom edge. So select the top edge. Now, go to the center point of that circle, because that's where we want to locate it from. Click. Now, here's the thing. 99% of the people out there would never figure this out, or take them a long time without looking up on YouTube. How do you bring that dimension up? If you click, left button doesn't work, right mouse button doesn't work. You have the middle click, and it drops the dimension. I know it's weird. It's just how Creo's been for as long as I can remember. My first time using Creo was 1994, I think, 94, 95, I think. But anyhow, been a long time. So anyhow, go ahead and type in 1, hit enter, and now we have the dimensions. Now I'm going to scroll out a little bit, and it's not a bad idea. Middle click a couple times, and lay the dimensions out so they're easy to read for the next person who might model on this. Okay, so it's good to just lay those out. See how I keep the dimensions in the center? Some of you are rolling your eyes right now because you know how to dimension, but believe it or not, a lot of my students, they have not taken the dimensioning class yet. It's not required for this class. So I'm showing you how to add some basic dimensions and make it easy to read, because a blueprint is a language. And what we're doing is making it easy for someone to interpret and understand so they can build this later on. All right, hit OK. And now if you rotate with the middle wheel, push it down and move left, right. And you can see here it's adding material. Now, what we want to do is flip that little arrow. You could flip it there, or you could flip it up here. And it starts to go into the part. Now, right now, if we rotate, it's going through it. That looks great. It's set to 0.75 on mine. Yours might be different. This may not be the best or ideal dimension, because change always occurs in design. So be ready for it. And there's something called design intent, which is basically being ready for change. We could add this right now. If we left it at 0.75, yeah, currently, it's going to go through, and maybe it has to go through so a bolt could go through it and attach to a nut on another part. Well, let's say all of a sudden instead of 0.5, manager comes, I want that 1 inch thick. 0.5 is too thin. Make it 1 inch thick. You make this area here 1 inch thick and hit enter, and you don't pay attention that now that hole is only 0.75. It's not a through hole. It gets sent out. They make 1 million copies of it. They get shipped to you, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not drilled through. What happened? You're in trouble. So design intent helps you prevent these little accidents from happening. Instead of using this actual dimension, to the left of it, there's actually this. You hit the little arrow and you'll see there's through all. Now there's also through all until. There's all these cool things. We're going to look at most of these later on. But through all ensures that it's going to go through the part no matter what change comes down. So that is an example of design intent. There's many more examples I'll give you over the course of this class, but don't think about it too much. You're going to end up wasting your time in the beginning. It's going to come to you natural after this class. Once you're working in industry and all of a sudden you're having to change things, you'll be like, I wish I would have thought of that. So I can't show you every contingency, but I can give you a little bit of guidance and a heads up. Go ahead and hit OK. All right, so now we're going to go ahead, and this is really done. If you double click, there's all the dimensions. Double click here, there's that dimension. Double click there, there's that dimension. You can change those if you want. This is just fine the way it is. You don't have to do anything more. Those of you who are in my class, this is all I require of you to make for exercise 1. I'm going to go further into it, but this is all you really need to turn in. And I would generally tell you that on most of these exercises. I add value by showing you other features and things like that we might not cover, we cover later on. And so that's what I'm going to do next. But before I leave, those of you who are in my classes, if you're online learning like D2L or whatever, you have to submit me something like this. And what I always recommend, 90% of the time, the standard orientation is good for me. Okay, if you want, you could double click to show some of the dimensions. That's fine too. I don't really need them. I could actually tell just by looking at it on the screen what's wrong. Just from, I've been having people train on this part for well over 2 decades. All right, so those of you who want to save this, you could do the, if you have Windows 11, I think even Windows 10, Windows key, Shift, and S is in Sam. So Windows Shift S brings up this window, then you could click and drag a fence from here to surround what you want. And then you could, in the online learning, you should be able to submit that, or you drop it into a Word document, a Google Doc, or Paint, and save it off. You can save it as a bitmap, a TIFF file, a PNG, and Adobe PDF is actually the preferred, and submit those. And a lot of students say, well, why not the part? Well, with the part, I can't really do things for you. I can't mark it up easily and then send it back to you. With the PDF, I could redline and mark it up with like a magic marker. So send me a PDF. Don't send me the 3D models unless I ask for them. And that's like next to never unless you're having an issue with it. Okay. So that's it. You do have also the ability here, there's the print, or there's a, let's see here, quick print, I believe you can save it as a PDF. Let's see, quick print. And then over here, Microsoft PDF, hit OK, and give it a name, in this case E1. And then that PDF is usually fine. Whichever, just make sure you send me a PDF. I don't want the 3D model. One other area in there, how do you save this? Well, this saves to a default directory inside here on your system. What you typically want to do when you're done with it is do a save a copy. And I don't need these files personally. You're never going to send them to me unless I ask you to. It's not a bad idea to save them though. But anyhow, hit save copy, and then you can locate where you want, like your desktop, and go ahead and give it a new name, give it a different name than it was, like E1. You could put in F or B, F for final, whatever, and just go ahead and hit OK, and then that will save that model for you. Okay, and that's it. So those of you who stood with me for this time, if you want to see how to jazz this part up, make it look like the one that you saw in the beginning, here we go. It's only going to take 5 minutes. All right, and I'm going to show you how to render too, which the rendering is fantastic. You can make a beautiful portfolio with it. Let's learn the round tool. Click on round. And what you do with this, you just click on an edge. Like, see this edge here? Click. Now there's little handlebars, or not handlebars, but balls. Click and drag it down, and you could adjust the fillet, or just double click, type it 1, hit enter. Now, once you set it to 1, click on this edge here on the step. It will add the same dimension, which you could change, but please keep it the same. Actually, you know what? I encourage you to have fun with it. Go ahead and do what you want. Enjoy it. One thing, maybe don't put it on these edges yet, though. You could tinker later. Hit the green check. So that's what they call a fillet, but here they call it a round or a radius. It's a nice, or a blend sometimes. It's like if you took a sanding block and sanded that edge off, or a file. Let's now take a look at chamfer. Chamfer is a sharp angle at whatever degree you specify. So let's go ahead and put in 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. And the way it's set right now, it's set where it's going to make it equal on both sides. So here you can see 0.125 on that edge. And notice it carries through tangent. All right. And do the same over here. And now if you wanted to, like there's distance to distance, you could change the distances so they're not equal. You could have an angle, so 45 by 0.125 would give you the same effect, and things like that. So there's all sorts of great tools in there, but we're just doing the basics today. So hit OK. Now rotate this around. Remember how to rotate? The wheel, hold down the wheel, move the mouse. Okay, at this point we go to shell, and from here set the thickness to 0.062. By the way, if you can't shell it, like if it gives you an error, you could always start getting it smaller and smaller. So try 0.032 or you could go smaller and smaller, and eventually it will probably get to shell if it's too complex. But this one, you shouldn't worry. It will work with 0.062. It'll work with 0.1 for crying out loud. But now you just select the faces that are to be removed for that shell. So like click on this face here. You'll see it gives us a preview. Now hold Control down and you could select multiple faces. And if you want, if you hold Control down, you could deselect faces too. So if you select one you didn't want to remove, you could click on it holding Control again and it will deselect it, you would say. All right, go ahead and hit OK. And there it is. Like I told you, 5 minutes. You've made it look like a very important part all of a sudden versus the basic primitive that was very boring. Now, let's add some color to it. For the colors, go to View, and you'll see Appearances. Hit the little arrow under Appearances, and there's a collection from a library you can choose from. You could customize them and add to it if you want. But let's go and let's set the whole part. I'm going to go with, let's see, this chrome plate. Now, before you click on this, go down here in the lower right. This is the filter. What do you want to color? Do you want the whole body? Yeah, I want the whole body. Click. Select the body, and now the middle wheel you have to click on, and it will apply it, and there we go. Now, this is where it might look better if you go to Shading with Reflections up here, and now all of a sudden you can see the reflections, which are pretty cool. Okay, let's add a little bit more color to this. Go to Appearances. I'm going to go to, I did blue already. I'm going to go to gold, and I want a polished gold. Like, yeah, here, polished gold. Now, instead of all, go to Surface, and now you could select that surface, and you could hold Control. Notice if you don't hold Control, it deselects what you had before, and select some of these other surfaces that you might want to see painted. And now middle wheel, or hit OK up here. And we've added those colors. Now let's turn on perspective. That gives the appearance of reality, because the room gets smaller the further you are away from the wall that you're looking at. And that's perspective. And that's what it's doing here. It's making it look more realistic. And now you could go to Scenes. And there's these different scenes to choose from. You could do some pretty cool stuff. If you click on this one, you don't see it right now, but watch this. Let's go to Applications. And not everyone I hear has Render Studio. Those of you who are my students should have Render Studio. But it sounds like some places don't have it. You might be working at a company that doesn't have it. So click on Render Studio, and all of a sudden you can see the studio around it. Look at that. We have what looks like that Las Vegas monolith that they've been finding lately. Copies of. I don't know if anyone's watching the news of that, but you could rotate it even with the wheel, and the longer you wait, the clearer it will look because it's actually using rendering technology. Now, it's my understanding with the Rendering Studio that if you are using an NVIDIA card, like a GeForce card, or one of the professional ones, especially the professional ones, should work a Quadro card or the T series, T600, 1000, or 400, it will actually work maybe even faster because it uses the CUDA cores that are in there. And remember, some of those graphics cards have 4,000 cores versus the computer I'm using is just using the microprocessor, which is an Intel 1440, so 14 series with, I believe, 16 threads, but 10 cores, 16 threads, or something like that. So it's not really taking full advantage, although it's pretty darn fast on here. Okay, and if you want to save this, you do have the ability to do a screenshot, or you could do that little Windows Shift S trick, which is, it doesn't work when I have my screen being recorded. But anyways, you could just click and drag a fence to surround it, and then paste that somewhere. The thing to remember with this, though, make sure you turn off real-time rendering when you're done, because it will soak up resources. And you'll hear your computer, the fan will start revving up because it gets hot. Oh, there it is. And now it's made a copy. So the snipping tool has made this and copied it to the clipboard. Okay, so anyhow, if I go back to scenes, they have some other, you could tinker with all those. I'm going to go with the basic one. And feel free to play with that. So that concludes this exercise. So exercise 1. Those of you who are in my class on D2L, take a look, scroll down under assignments. Near the very bottom, you'll start seeing the labs. There's even a quiz in there. Labs 1 and 1B, there's videos for those that are in that location. We'll show you how to do the labs that go along with this. So don't forget to do your labs. This exercise is worth, I believe, 30 points, between 10 to 30, and the labs are worth between 5 to 10 points. So, well, that's it for this week. Next week, we take a look at exercise 2, and that's going to be using the revolve tool. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Have a great day.